Basir is a Johorian, and she is currently attached to UiTM. Let me just get this correct. Okay. Okay. And she's working as a senior lecturer She's obtained her master's degrees in applied statistics in 2008 from the University of Malaya, and she is currently pursuing a PhD as a PhD candidate, also from the University of Malaya. Her areas of interest is mainly on applied statistics, where she focused on the applications of statistics in various fields of study. So Nora is going to talk to us about determinants of starting salary of bachelor's degrees graduates, okay? A case study. And I think this is a very sort of interesting topic, because this is one of those topics that have been, talked among especially academicians. Okay, so without further ado, I invite Nora to make her presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Is it clear?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Prof. Thank you all guests. Okay. So for this morning, I will present my paper on determinants of starting salary of bachelor degree graduate, a case study. I will share my slide. Okay, so my name is Nora Basir. So I will present on the determinants of starting salary of bachelor degree graduate, a case study. So as an introduction, okay, in the era of growing technology converge, the numbers of graduates produced by public and private universities seems to be increasing. However, not all graduates are fortunate enough to secure a job or succeed in getting job that match with their qualification. When graduates are offered a job, one of the important factor they will take into account is the salary offered. So based on the fresh graduate survey by JobStreet in 2018, it is found that 63% of employers offer a fresh graduate salary between 2,100 and 2,900. So from 3 evaluators of Jobs Store, Malaysian Employer Federation and Bank Negara, this is the estimated salary they give on 2018 for the fresh graduate, 2,635, 2,618 from MEF and 2,169 from the Bank Negara Malaysia. The salary based on Bank Negara is quite far away from the other 2 evaluators as of the different side of view of each company. So as a consequence to the situation, graduate monthly salary from the available data are regrouped into 2 categories, which are non-graduate salary and graduate salary, namely as a salary status, where I put it as 2,500 as the cutting point. Okay, so over the year, great emphasis had been placed on the graduate employment rate, as it is often used to measure the ability of the relationship of institution in producing graduate that meet the labour market. However, there is a little attention to more pertinent question if the starting salary of the graduate commensurate to the qualification obtained. It's understandable the starting salary will vary by the field of study, but surely there are no other factors too. So this paper attempt to identify the most significant variable contribute to the bachelor degree graduate starting salary using the empirical evidence. Okay, so my research objective will be to examine the most significant variable contribute to the bachelor degree graduate starting salary, and the question will be, what is the most significant variable contribute to this bachelor degree graduate starting salary? So for the methodology, my population will be the employed graduate from one of the public university in Malaysia, and 1,485 employed graduate in 2018 from one of the public university in Malaysia will be a sample. So the variable will be used in this study is a salary status, gender, field of study, Mohd, for the English proficiency, and the CGPA will be benchmark for the academic performance. So I will use the chi-square automatic detector analysis or chat analysis, as this analysis visually display relationship between the variable by generating the tree diagram to determine the best variable merge in explaining the dependent variable. Okay, a node is splitting. Okay, only if the significant criteria is fulfilled by using the chi-square test. Okay, so generally, since that only 40.4% of the graduate managed to get the graduate salary. Okay, this is the whole decision tree that will be produced, and it completely managed to produce 5 branch with 12 nodes. Okay, so the first, okay, so I go for detail. Okay, for the first significant variable based on this particular analysis is the field of study. Okay, so as a general, we can see that 40.4%. Okay, rate of all of the graduate managed to get the graduate salary compared to the non-graduate salary, which is 59.6%. Okay, splitting for the field of study as a first most significant variable that contribute to the graduate salary will be the literature and social science education, science, okay, field of study, and the other one will be the technical, information technology, communication, business, economic, and law field of study. Okay, so on the literature, social science, and education, okay, 15.5% as a rate of percentage that they managed to get the graduate salary. Okay. And then the English proficiency, the Mohd, will be the significant variable for this particular field of study, where, okay, the student who managed to get Mohd band more than band 2, band 3, and to band 6, okay, they have a rate of 24.7% to manage to get the graduate salary compared to one that have lower than band 2, where only 7.0% that managed to get the graduate study. However, by the field of study of science, okay, the percentage of the rate will be higher. When we compare it higher, okay, 33.9% managed to get the graduate salary. And then the other contribute factor will be the CGPA, the academic performance, and it goes within 2 nodes, where the one that have lower than 3.7 and the higher more than 3.7. So who are getting less than 3.7, okay, only 29.5% managed to get the graduate salary. However, who get more than 3.7, okay, CGPA managed to get, okay, 55.6%, or rate of them managed to get the graduate salary. Okay, however, when we go to this field of study more on the technical field of study, 62.3% of students managed to get the graduate salary. Okay, higher, more than half. Okay, so another variable that is significant will be the CGPA, where it's this split into 3 nodes, less than 3.2, between 2.7 to 3.7, and less than 2.7, 2.7 to 3.7, and more than 3.7. So as a general, we can say that the higher the CGPA, the higher the potential or rate of them to get the graduate salary. Okay. However, for the one that the same field of study and the same level of CGPA but less than 2.7, gender goes another significant variable to contribute that they managed to get the graduate study or not. But on this particular last note, note 12 shows that male have the higher percentage rate to get the graduate study rather than female. Okay, as a finding, from the finding, it shows that the lowest salary level, which is 1,000 to 1,500, contribute about 29% of the overall employed graduate salary. However, using the new variable of salary status, majority 59.6% of graduate having non-graduate salary as their starting salary, and only 40.4% managed to gain the graduate salary. A check analysis indicate that the variable that contribute to the graduate salary status as starting salary, we found explained by the field of study, Mohd, the English proficiency, CGPA, their academic performance, and gender. As a conclusion, the most significant variable contribute to the bachelor degree graduate starting salary is the field of study. Thus, the interrelationship of the graduate salary with the variable of graduates as the contributing factor must be deeply understood. So this factor must be taken into account as the university guide them before entering the labour market. Okay, thank you for me. Okay, Prof, thank you.
Thank you very much, Nora. It's a very interesting talk. Okay. We have, can we have this? 5 minutes, maybe we open to floor if there are any questions. Otherwise, we'll, moving on from that, if there are any other questions, we will have it at the end of the, after all the three presenters have already presented their presentations. So I open to the floor. If you have any questions, please, probably raise your hands, okay, and then state your name and also present your questions, okay. Alternatively, you can write
hello, Prof.
Yes.
Irfan here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you, Nora, for the presentation. I just have some thought. Is there any government policy or maybe future policy the government want to make sure that the equality that what the men and women earns in future? I mean, because nowadays people talk about the pay equality and everything between men and women. So is there any policy for Malaysia currently? That's all my question.
Okay, for the time being, what I'm no, there is no specific policy, but we try to give a quite big opportunity to the female. Okay, the same level of job and payment if they had managed to contribute to the workforce.
Thank you, Nora.
Thank you.
Adriana?
Yeah, I have a question. I think your research looks interesting, but aren't there some other factors or factors that are left out? For example, it might seem controversial, but for example, race, not the race, and also is it like urban area or is it like rural area? Because urban area have higher income than rural area. So if you have that, if they're working like in Ipoh or working in KL, then they have different starting income, right? And of course, depending on is it international company or is it like national company? Multinational. So they should have different also different wage, right? So I think you might want to consider like other factors to be included in the model.
Yeah. Thank you, Doctor. I'll put it in my additional another part of the variable.
Yeah. Any other questions? I have a few questions, but I let the floor, ask a few more questions before I ask mine. Okay, maybe I'll proceed with mine first. Okay, while we wait for the rest. Okay, I echoed Adriana's concern. Okay. Because I think number one is actually looking at your sample compositions, okay? Because you use is this representative of universities across Malaysia, okay? Because you use one university, so if that university is skewed to not having many races, okay, then one of the indicator that can probably affect your findings, okay? And this is one in terms of diversity of compositions, okay, and I also put in my notes here, urban versus rural, okay, because that is another aspect that you have to look into this, okay. So composition of the sample size, sample itself is very important, because otherwise it will be only, it cannot be generalized, it cannot be used as a, guide for all, but maybe for that particular university.
The university only,
Yes, that's right, okay.
Yeah.
And then so maybe I think you would have agreed. I think maybe that is best to do. Secondly, when we look at this, as I say, maybe this is an infant stage that you're doing, okay. But maybe if you're doing more research on this, okay, when we're looking at the job market in Malaysia itself, as Adriana pointed out, what happens when we look at multinational and companies and so on. So if we look at Malaysia itself, okay, we are actually now in the middle income trap, okay, because there's salary stagnation, because we focus mainly on supply, on things like source, distribution, and assembly. Lack of creation for demand, like Singapore and Korea. So that's why when you look at the salary income, it is very, 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 it hasn't improved over the years. Okay, for many years, that has been very stagnant, that kind of starting salary. Okay. So maybe I think when you look at what happens when we go into borderless nations, okay, when we look at globalization, how is this perceived? Okay, how do you compare the findings that you have against that kind of environment that we have at the landscape that we have today? Also, when we look at things like I think when we look at graduates, as one of your indicators says, okay, the discipline, the graduate degree programs itself, okay, what happens to then things like micro credentials, okay, because I think today's market, if you look at from the industry's perspective, they're looking at things like creativity, okay, creative minds, okay, where people are thinking outside the box to solve, to solve complex problem solving, and this is the kind of attributes that you're looking from the graduates, okay. So maybe there are a few more, important sort of, variables that can be, incorporated in your study, okay? And maybe it would be nice if we can also compare global wise, in a global setting, okay? How good will the model itself be? Yeah, I think that's from me lah. Just some concerns. Okay, so maybe you would like to respond to that.
I will take for the time being. The data is I only have that particular data to see, but I will take it all the variable that actually must be considered within the job market in Malaysia. Okay, this is actually the tracer study data. So all the information is there actually, but it's not being included in my study for the first part. Okay, so I will consider all that variable later.
Yeah, maybe you would like to work with the Ministry of Higher Education, because I think from my is probably they have a tracer study, and you will have more sort of samples which you can sample from the various universities, right?
Various universities, yeah.
Yes. Okay. So any other questions? Any other questions? Amin Ledang. Yeah. You have a question? Maybe I'll read for him. Saya nak tanya, kebanyakan universiti college tempatan mendakwa student mereka mendapat pekerjaan dari syarikat tempatan. Kita ada data ke yang membuktikan kesahihan dakwaan diorang? Some concerns about this.
Untuk collect data tu tak pasti, tapi Mohd ada Ministry of Education tu ada buat satu lagi tracer study on after graduate, lepas masa kalau nak ikutkan, dia ada dua study di mana after maybe 2 or 3 years or 5 years mereka collect lagi data untuk tengok kat mana student berada. Okay, yang satu lagi ialah yang right after before dia graduating ceremony tu, composition ceremony, so dia take that information also. Jadi dia kumpul dekat situlah yang dia ambil. Another one thing ialah daripada itulah MOF ke, daripada job strip, dia tengok track apa job yang application daripada graduate try to get that job apply, then dia orang boleh jangkakan apa saja pekerjaan yang graduate kita dapat masa ni.
Okay, we will take one last question. Okay, then the rest will follow through after the last speaker have already spoken. Ilmia, do you want to say something? Okay, maybe I'll read for you. Okay, we have a question. What about the occupation category of graduates? Did you look into them? Okay.
Oh, okay. So for the time being, I'm not seeking detail on the occupation category because on the limited data frame. So, but this particular thing will be looked into it later.
Okay. Okay. So I think we'll let you off. Okay, we'll come back to you later after all have already presented their whatever that they want to present. Okay.
Okay.
So thank you, Nora. Okay, we'll be back
Thank you.
with you again later.
Okay,
now
thank you.
thank you. Our next speaker, okay, is Miss Asmida Mustafa. Okay. Asmida Mustafa she's a Kelantanese, okay, and previously employed as a tutor and research assistant at one of the universities. Okay, I think probably maybe you can correct me that. She earned a Master's of Science Statistics from the University of Malaya in 2017, and she is currently a PhD student at the Faculty of Economics and Administration, University of Malaya, under the supervision of Prof. Dr. Nur Azina Ismail. So, Azina talk will be on human population projection in Malaysia using Bayesian probabilistic method. Okay, Azina, over to you. Yes.
Okay, I will start my presentation. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and very good morning to all. My name is Asmida and today I'm going to present my study about human population projection in Malaysia using Bayesian probabilistic method. This is my presentation outline today. We will have three main parts. The first one is introduction. Population projection is one of the important inputs for the plan, for future plan of a country. Over the last few decades, there has been increases in the number of approaches or method that researchers and demographers consider to use when they want to produce the human population projection. They start with the time series method, and then the method keep changing and upgrading from time to time, so that the researcher and also demographers can produce a better population projection values. Since the population projection value is important for the various level of policy making, so demographer and researcher, of course, tend to focus on producing the most accurate projection values. However, as we know that the population projection in Malaysia is still use the deterministic method known as cohort component method, and also the mathematical method such as exponential model, and also interpolation and extrapolation of logistic model. Those deterministic and mathematical methods are very simple to use, or we can say that directly can use, but then the main disadvantages of those methods, they don't have any probabilistic basis, and of course due to this they will have high uncertainty in the population projection values that they produce. Up until now, the most commonly projection method is called as Bayesian probabilistic projection method. This method has probabilistic basis, and also they can convey the uncertainty that may arise in the projected value. So that due to this advantage, Bayesian approach can give us a more reliable projected value compared to the deterministic methods. The objective of my study is that you want to produce estimates based on Bayesian probabilistic method of human population projection in Malaysia, which will portray a better projection compared to the conventional method or deterministic method. The second part is methodology. My target population is, of course, the human population in Malaysia. I'm using secondary data from DOSM which is the census data 1970 until the currently 2010. And then for total fertility rate data, I will use data from 1958 until 2010 and also life expectancy at birth from 1966 to 2010. For the description of variables, my dependent variable, which my main variable that I want to find is the total human population in Malaysia, where in order to get this total human population, I need the variable of birth component, which is we measure using the total fertility rate, and also I need the component of mortality or death. We measure it using the life expectancy at birth, and the last one is the net international migration, which is the immigration minus with the emigration, in minus with out. Okay, the total fertility rate is breakdown by the age category for the woman at childbearing age, and then for the life expectancy at birth, we have it by the gender, male and female, and also age group. For the methodology, Bayesian probabilistic method, we use the census data from year 1970 until the current one, 2010. And 2010 will be my base year for the projection. And I project from year 2010 until 2060. Meanwhile, the projection by the DOSM, they also use census data 2010 as present year. As the base year. They use a few assumptions for the projection total fertility rate and life expectancy at birth, and they project for year 2010 until 2040, slightly different with my projection. This is the cohort component method that being applied by population projection by DOSM. The future population is equals to current future population is equal to current population with plus with the birth component minus with mortality and plus with net international migration. Net international migration is actually the total number of immigrant, which is the person come inside Malaysia, minus with the total number of immigrants. We minus with the person goes out from the Malaysia. For the Bayesian probabilistic method, as you can see here, the figure here, this is the process how I get the total population projection using the Bayesian approach. First, since I mentioned just now, to get the population, we need birth component, death component, and also net immigration. So from here, I will first estimate the total fertility rate parameters. You can see the parameters need to estimate later. And then I will visualize the MCMC result and check the convergence. After the convergence is achieved, no problem with the convergence test, then I will proceed to project the total fertility rate for the future year. The same process is for the life expectancy at birth. And then we will combine trajectories from total fertility rate and life expectancy at birth to get the total human population. This structure process is adapted from Sepsikova and Raftery 2016. Okay, for the first component just now, birth component, we measure it using total fertility rate value. Raftery, Alkema and Gerland 2014, they define total fertility rate in 3 phases. The first one called as high fertility pre-transition, where here the total fertility rate high fertility pre-transition, the value for total fertility rate is 6, 7, 8 and above. The second phase is known as fertility transition, where the total fertility rate start to decrease from the high value to the replacement level. Replacement level is 2.1. And then the third phase is low fertility post-transition. This phase 3 is actually the recovery process from total fertility rate below replacement fertility level of 2.1 towards this value and oscillate around the value of 2.1. For my study, we will only model phase 2 using the double logistic function of a Bayesian hierarchical model. We do not model phase 1 because Malaysia already passed this stage. And we also do not model the phase 3 because Malaysia still did not reach this phase. So to model the phase 2, I use this equation as in equation 2. Here, to get the total fertility rate in the future, I have to first estimate the expected decrement as in equation 3, and also I have to estimate for the random distortion term. Okay, for the first decrement that I need to estimate is that this is the equation, it's equation 4. And then for the random distortion is as in equation 5. For the prior distribution, since in equation 4 and 5, we have many parameters that we need to estimate. So we set the prior distribution, as you can see here, there are about 7. Yeah, and then once I settle all this estimate for the parameter, then I can get the total fertility rate for the Malaysia. After that, I project for the 2010 until 2060. The second component is life expectancy at birth. Since we just now I mentioned we have male and female life expectancy at birth, we do the estimation and projection for the female life expectancy since it is more stable compared to the male life expectancy. This one is according to Raftery, Lally and Gerland 2014. Also, same as total fertility rate, we have two term that we need to estimate first, which is the first one, the expected gain in life expectancy, and also the random perturbation. For the random perturbation is normally distributed with mean 0 and constant variant here. And then for the expected gain in life expectancy, we will refer to this equation 7. As you notice, there are a lot of parameters that need to be estimated. So we will apply this prior distribution. And the prior distribution, we use normal here, the normal distribution we truncated so that this double logistic parameter are positive. And then after we get the life expectancy at birth for female, we need to find the gap between the gender, male and female. Find the gap using this equation 11. So in order to get the life expectancy at birth for male, we just minus from the value of female just now. Because actually some of the study, they projected the probabilistic life expectancy at birth for both gender, male and female, at the same time. However, their model becomes more complex. As you can see, the model to get the female itself already complex. So if you combine together, of course, will be more complex. Okay, this is how I will get the total population. I run about 100 iterations. This number of iteration, there is no, as I know, there is no subjective number, how many iteration you need to run, how many you need to run, because this one, we just try and error and then check the convergence. If we get convergence, no problem, and then we can proceed for the projection. Okay, for the result, since my study actually want to compare the projection between deterministic method and Bayesian probabilistic method, so of course we compare about that one. As you can see, the first component is total fertility rate. Figure on the left side, this one is from DOSM. projected by Dawson, the value of total fertility rate will decrease. They estimate and project the total fertility rate will decrease and reach 1.5 at a certain year, 2000, I think here, they will reach 1.5 and the value will be constant. However, using probabilistic method, the value still decrease, but there is no, they didn't constant at a certain value. Okay, for the second component, life expectancy at birth, this one, Dawson used assumption that the life expectancy for male and female will increase at rate 0.2 years for every year. So at the end, at the last year of projection, 2040, they will get 78 for male and 83 for female. However, we do not use any assumption for the Bayesian probabilistic method, and we will get the value. Of course, the value will be different, and we will have a range of value for the life expectancy. Also, same here for the total. We have range of values compared to exact value. And then for the total human population, okay, will deterministic method get the total population in Malaysia in 2040, it is around 41.5 million. And using Bayesian probabilistic, we get about 40.1 million in 2060. Okay, this is the population pyramid for 3 years, 1970, 2010, and 2060. We can see here in 1970, the shape of population pyramid is intermediate. The base is wider, which means has high birth rate and convex slope, high life expectancy, and the top are broader flat, which means that high elder population. However, as we projected for 2060, the shape change into a regressive pyramid. The criteria is similar to the intermediate, except the base is narrow, which means we have low birth rate. Yeah. Okay, this is the my convergent test for total fertility rate and life expectancy at birth. So there is no problem with the convergence. That's why we proceed with the projection. For the conclusion, the projection values for total fertility rate, life expectancy at birth, and total population components in cohort component method are solely determined by the initial condition as well as the parameter values. So for using deterministic method, we will get exactly value from the what input we include, use the formula, and then we get the output. And then high, medium, and low variant also used in the assumption. So we will, the projection values that we get using the deterministic method will tends to be overvalued or undervalued. Due to these advantages, we propose to Dawson to consider to use this Bayesian probabilistic projection method instead of the deterministic method. This is mainly because, as you can see, that probabilistic projection method can give us a more realistic projection values compared to the deterministic method, and at the same time, we can convey the uncertainty problem in the projected values. Reference. Okay, that's all.
Okay, thank you, Asmida. Okay, very good talk. Okay, I know there are some questions from the floor, but can we just reserve these questions and let's listen to Muhammad Irfan, and we'll get back to the question time after Muhammad Irfan's presentation.
Yeah, yeah, okay? Sure.
Right.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Thank you, Asmida.
Okay, thank you, Prof.
Asmida, I kept calling you Asmida. Okay. Okay, so our next guest speaker, our speakers is Muhammad Irfan. Okay, Muhammad Irfan is currently pursuing his PhD in Universiti of Malaya, specializing in financial econometrics. Irfan's PhD research is on how Malaysian government could manage pension. Irfan's his research is actually on pension. Okay. So on how the government could manage pension asset efficiently in matching future pension liabilities. He's currently working on an asset investment. He's currently working as an investment analyst in one of the local financial institutions. Previously, Irfan has worked at multiple companies such as Bank Negara Malaysia, Bloomberg LP, and CEIC Data. Okay, so let's welcome Irfan to give a presentation on modeling determinants of pension cost, new evidence from Malaysia. So Irfan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Prof. Can you hear me, Prof?
Yes, very clear.
Very clear. Let me try to share my PowerPoint first.
Yes.
Okay. Let me start with the thank you, Prof, as the moderator today. So I would like to say thank you to Department of Statistics Malaysia, Bank Negara Malaysia, Institute Statistic Malaysia as well to organize this Malaysia Statistic Conference 2020. This is my first time presenting paper here. So let me introduce myself. My name is Mohd Irfan, like Prof said just now. So my supervisor is Associate Professor Dr. YBhg from Faculty of Economics and Administration, University of Malaya. So we are more than happy to share one of our paper that we're currently working on, that entitled Modeling Determinants of Pension Costs, New Evidence from Malaysia. So let me start with some of introductions. Because now old age income security is one of the biggest concerns that everyone talk. Either for as a policymaker, academician, insurance company, or even some of the economists talk about this issue. So these concerns has led to the idea on how to maintain the pensions in the long-term periods. Based on the patterns, most of the government today, as at 2020, as well as Malaysia government has concern about rising pension costs every year. That is why Malaysia government is considering to abolish permanent and pension scheme for public service appointments near soon. The Malaysia government would like to replace this kind of existing pension scheme into contract basis plan for any public service appointment. However, Public Service Act that protect this new hiring permanence or contracts. One of the example that Public Service Act is doing is that they protect, they cannot terminate all these hiring terminated quickly without being proven guilty in any severe circumstances. So the government just hope that with this new type of pension scheme could reduce a little bit the future pension costs in future. So even the idea for government Malaysia to change from the permanent and pension scheme into the contract has been like public concerns. Either government want to do it or not, it's up to governments. But Malaysia government, I think, is still looking for the best solution in tackling between how the people want to survive after the post-retirement periods, and at the same time, they have to consider the financial sustainability in the long run. A weird question to be answered is like either government Malaysia is running out of resources to pay the pension in future, or they do need some of the improvements for the existing pension schemes, or they have to review the future of the current system, to sustain the pension scheme for the long run. That's basically the idea of introduction. So let me talk about how the Malaysia longevity risk could affect on the pension scheme in Malaysia. Like previously, the second speaker, Asmida, talked about the longevity and how the Malaysia longevity has been improved for the past 20 years. This is one of the risks that government has to bear when the longevity has happened in Malaysia. Malaysia is currently exposing to longevity risk, which is, if you can see, Department of Statistics Malaysia issued the latest Malaysia life expectancy at birth has been considerably improvement since for the past few years. You can see in 2008, it recorded 72.2 years. 2008 is 73.7 years, and 2019 is 74.5 years. It has been like increased. To the right one, you can see that according to the United Nations Development of Economic and Social Affairs, has revealed that Malaysian aged 60 years old and above was about 1.38 million in 2010s and estimated to be around 1.95 in 2017 and 2018. In 2020, the United Nations has projected that Malaysia has 2.34 million that above 65 years old. I mean, it's been double up. The forecast in 2040 is about 5.24 million. So basically in 2040 is about 6 million of people, Malaysian, is like age 65 years and above. So, I mean, how this longevity could affect the Malaysia government. I mean, since of the pensionable civil servants under the defined benefit pension system, they do not need to contribute or save to their pensions. Longevity is not an issue for them because the public pension payment are currently tax funded by the government. However, aging population will result in higher government expenditure as pension payment the pension payment are expected to be increased as the population that included pensioner and the beneficiary will have a longer life expectancy. I mean, from 2013, the government implemented an annual pension increment of 2% without having to wait any review of the remuneration system or salary adjustment. I mean, this is like very fiscally unsuitable for the government to continue on this path. I mean, given that the other committed expenses such as debt services charges that takes a lot of portion of the operating expenditure. When we talk about the financial sustainability, we want to look into the financial burden that the government has to bear every year. I mean, the Malaysian government now facing the problem that increasing financial burden in terms of the total amount pension cost they have to pay to the pensioner every year. So according to the economic report by the Prime Minister Office, in the latest budget 2020, that tabled on Malaysia Parliament in October 2019, civil servant pensions itself only will cost to the federal government is about 27.1 billion ringgit in Malaysia. Not million, it's billion ringgit Malaysia. So many literature review talk about how the pension has a significance on the emoluments. So basically, the emolument is the salary that the government pay to the civil servants. It matters because higher emoluments will always be reflected in higher salary for civil servants, and the monthly pension to a pensioner is calculated based on the last drawn salary when they retired from the government. I mean, for the past 15 years, the allocation of the emoluments has been more than 25% of the total operating expenditure of the Malaysia government. So this is something to be pondered. The Malaysia government should have a serious look on this issue for the long term if they want to have a financial stability in the long run. So this is the graph, the comparison between the number of pensioner, the blue one, and the pension cost itself. If you can see that the pension cost has been doubled up for every single 10 years, from 1971 to 1980, that recorded is 535% increases. 1981 to 1990 recorded 100% increases. 1991 to 2000 recorded like 130% increases. I mean, these rates of the pension payment for the period 1970 to 2020 for the 50 years is something that has been fluctuated between negative to 83.3% on average. In 2018, when the Tun Dr. Mahathir took over Putrajaya, he acknowledged that the pension payment have become a substantial financial burden for the government, especially when the pension bill has been burdened by the previous administrations by 25% salary increment for civil servants without taking into any government financial strengths. So after we talk about the pension, we must also need to include some of the Malaysia retirement age. I mean, there are multiple literature review discussed on the optimal retirement age. They should be cut, they should be extended. But I would like to highlight these three literature review, where the Lindell 2003 believed that the retirement age should be extended because they believe when people work longer than the retirement, they will reduce the pension cost since they will live in the post-retirement shorter compared to when they retired earlier. On the same page, where the study based on the Mission 2000s believe that the society members should be contribute more to the society by working in the longer term rather than a pension and earlier. These will reduce the pensioner benefits as it could balance the resources in the society itself. However, Ibrahim 2012 argued that this amendment of the retirement age could only result in higher pension expenditure, as pension calculation is based on the last pay salary. That's how I mentioned about the emolument, because the Malaysia government pensions already been calculated based on the last pay salary. So the higher expenditure is to cover for the extended employment service. The latest retirement age revision took in January 2012, where the government revised from 50 years old to 60 years old. That's the latest retirement age for Malaysian. So enough for the some of introduction and the problems. So maybe we can talk about my research methodology. So basically, this study to attempt and to model and investigate factors that influencing some of the pension costs over an extended period for the Malaysia economy using some of the ordinary least square model with data range from 1971 to 2019. So when we talk about the Malaysia federal budget, there are two types of the budget. So either the operating expenditure and development expenditure. So roughly about operating expenditure is the expenses that the government have to pay every month, and development expenditure is the expenses that they have to develop the country. That's a rough idea about the OE and the E. And the pension cost is to be categorized under operating expenditure. So the formula is that operating expenditure is sum of the emolument, supplies and services, fixed charges. Fixed charges is the interest of the loans and grants and others. So my model study, this paper, we use some of the independent variable based on the current literature survey. As such, this study used the number of pensioner, emoluments, life expectancy, population growth, share of population above 65 years old, and GNP as well. Accordingly, this is the mathematical function that we should be expressed in our study. First, we take as the pension cost. This paper, we determine three dependent variables. First is the pension cost. Second, the operating expenditure. And the third one is the percentage of pension cost over the operating expenditure for every year. So for the independent variable, we determines like inflation, population, life expectancy, emoluments, and GNP as well. So as shown in table 1, all the data that will be used for the study come from the various sources. There are economic report, there are United Nations, Department of Statistics Malaysia, DOSMs, and CIC data. So all these data will be transformed into some of the log. So let me take a roughly explain on the independent variable as well. So
Irfan, another 2 minutes, huh?
2 minutes?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sure. Okay, maybe I should proceed into the hypothesis. So this hypothesis, basically, we believe that the inflation is positive related to pension cost, the crisis. So let me take a look some of the crisis. The crisis, because the economic have like 10 years cycle of the economics problem. So the crisis is when the financial crisis happens, let's say 97 to 98, 2007, 2008. Life expectancy has positive, the emolument has positive, and the populations, the number of pensioners positive, the population growth positive, the GNP positive. The more Malaysia earned for the tax, the higher that they pay the pension. This is the initial hypothesis. I mean, the same hypothesis will be applied to the second dependent variable and the third dependent variable. So let's have a look some of the results. So first, I will present the sum of the correlation matrix. You can see some of the relation between some of the factor within other factor. I mean, this is a matrix that you study the relationship between the factor if you want to see high correlated or not between this factor. Second, we talk about the descriptive statistics. If you can see, the life pensioner, we do only have the observations for 20 years only, since we do have data only 2000 onwards, as compared than the others that we do have like almost 50 years, since the limited data that we get from the public sources. So as a result, maybe we should take one first independent variable. Life expectancy is positive related to pension costs. The number of pensioner is also significant, even we do have a small sample size of 20. Model 5 is the most educated model for independent variable of pension costs. Population growth, Malaysia population growth and GNP are excluded due to some of the multi-correlati that we've been run before we get this result. The lag dependent variable will be created to solve some of the outer correlation issue. This is the second dependent variable. Operating expenditure is emoluments positive related to OPEX. The number of pensioner is also significant, even small sample size of 20. In this case, model 1 is the most educated to predict some of the operating expenditure. Same as the previous result, there's some multi-correlati that we've been discovered in this. Then we do some of the lag dependent variable to solve this autocorrelation issue. And the last one is the pension cost to OPEX. This is a little bit interesting, since you see that the emoluments is negatively related to pension costs to OPEX. It's number 1, 2, and 4 model. So this is a weird thing that we found, because the emoluments and the OPEX should have positive relationships, but the result been discovered that it has negative relationship to the ratio that we've been run pension cost over the operating expenditure. The population above 65 years old is positively related to this ratio. It's been shown in model 2. The number of pensioner also significant due to sample size of 20. And in this one, model 6 is the most educated model for dependent variables, pension cost over the OPEX. So this is the summary of the hypothesis testing. You can see that between these three dependent variables, the different independent variable that supported the idea of the pension cost, the operating expenditure, and the ratio of the pension cost over the operating expenditure. I mean, different dependent is supported by different independent variable. So let me take some time to conclude my presentation today. It showed that the life expectancy, this study proved that the number of pensioner is the most important determinant to the pension cost. Even this quite small data that we collect for the past 20 years, expected that the life expectancy will pose the longevity risk to the fiscal space of the government. The higher GNP will reduce the ratio of the pension cost to operating expenditure. In other words, the growth, the national growth might exceed the growth that the public servant for long-term sustainability. I learned to take the idea of the Malaysia in comparative policy. We're thinking Malaysia as a company, so the government should think Malaysia, how to run Malaysia as one of the company, how they can take any initiative to reduce the cost, to make sure that there are fiscal sustainability in the long run. That's all my presentation today. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. That's a very nice talk, Irfan. I wish we have more time. Okay, let's open the questions to the floor. If anybody has any questions for Asmida and also Irfan, Please state your name and post your questions. Maybe I'll start one. There's a question from, I think, Suhaimi, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. This is for our speaker number 2, Asmida. Okay. The question is life expectancy using CCM model. Okay. According to your slides and according to your study, it says that it is less reliable compared to Bayesian. Okay. So perhaps, okay, this is a request. Can you name countries that has already used this kind of method that is Bayesian, in their calculations?
Okay. Thank you for the question, Mr. Suhaidi. Actually, as I showed just now, since the CCM will use assumption for life expectancy at birth, so we will definitely get the exact value. They use assumption of 0.2 rate will increase every year. So at the end of the projection year, which is 2040, the value will be 78 and 83 for male and female respectively. However, for the Bayesian, we do not set this kind of assumption. So, of course, sorry. Actually, because core component method use the assumption, this assumption actually they have the high, medium, and low scenarios. These scenarios is a way of CCM deal with the uncertainty in projection value. However, the probabilistic method, they do not use this kind of high, medium, and low scenario because they will the way they deal with the uncertainty in projected value, they produce a large sample of future trajectories, which that's why the value for life expectancy projected values are more reliable. And then for the countries that already use Bayesian, as I know, US and UK already use this kind of method, and maybe Korea as well. Yeah, because as from my presentation, the model is very complex and you need a programmer to get the projection values. So maybe because of that, other official the statistic department didn't consider to use this type of method. But previously, when we go to DOSM, we will they said they will consider to use this Bayesian probabilistic method in the future. Yeah, that's all from me, Prof.
Okay, any other questions? Maybe I ask you one question. Irfan?
Yes, boss.
Okay.
Yes.
What is the average number of years that the government pays pensions to pensioners in Malaysia?
Basically, because based on the life expectancy by Malaysian currently like 75, right? So usually the actuaries calculated based on the number life expectancy minus our average of the retirement age. So basically, it's about 15 years or to 16 years currently.
Right. So that's the number of sort of years that the government has to supplement with this pension.
But Prof, please be aware that Malaysia pension scheme is a little bit different with other country, since we do also support some of the beneficiary of the pensioner if their son or the spouse still alive, or the children less than 18 years. So basically, when they actually want to predict the number of average years when they have to sustain the pension, is a little bit harder, since we have to take some of consideration of this beneficiary instead of take the pensioner itself.
That would be very nice, because if we have a breakdown or into the real pensioners and also the beneficiaries, Okay, maybe then you come with something nice, sort of, findings and recommendations, I think.
Yes, we acknowledge on that, but I mean, some of our concerns due to the limitation data that we get from the government. So we just work within the constraints. I mean, within the ability, within the data that we have currently. Thank you, Prof, by the way, for the question.
Thank you. Okay, there's another question. Cik Amin from Ledang, do you want to pose a question?
Saya nak tanya tentang pencen, nak gabungkan. I mean, when you talk about the government pension and the swasta, right? The swasta means a private company. Usually, private company has the EPF and the government have the POP. I mean, the institution that manage the pension money, right? So as you can see, the government also starts give some of the kelonggaran to all the public servants, either they want to choose EPF or the pension itself. So maybe this is one of the way the government do to make sure they has to reduce the financial burden in the long term. So whether that we pay you pension for until you die, why not you just stick the EPF rather than it's good for government and it's good for the individual itself. If they think that they want to use the lump sum money when they retired. I mean, there's a pro and cons between the pension and the EPF. I mean, this is, but I never heard of the combination between the private and the public so far. Yes, sorry.
Yeah, you want to answer that?
Yes. Which question? Prof, sorry,
Cik Amin, if you go through the Cik Amin from Ledang from apa ni? If you go to the chats, okay, there's some notes as well written there.
So you mean the untuk gabungkan dana pension, is it? Is it? Hello? I
Yes.
cannot hear. Okay.
That's right.
Sorry, there's some lagging of the connections. I did mention just now that I never heard of these kind of rumors, but I know that in governments now they give some of the, kelonggaran to the pension. Either they want to choose EPF or the pension. I mean, this is one of the initiatives taken by the government to reduce for the future financial burdens, since they give some of the option to the government servants.
Irfan,
Yeah.
maybe I'll just ask maybe one just naive questions. Is there
Yes.
any move from the government, recent things on any policies or any, or any suggestions from the government how to, how to sustain this and how to making sure that we can still do the payments to these pensions and still be okay with whatever our spendings, because yes, 28 billion is a lot of it's a sizable amount. Okay, so yeah.
I acknowledge the concerns. I mean, so far I'm not aware of any new government talk about these pensions concerns. But as the previous administration led by the Mahdi, I mean, the Mahdi has some of the concerns this issue, and that's why they brought the idea of convert from the pensionable civil servant to the contract, these kind of things. But because this is a very sensitive issue when you raise up to the public, so you cannot simply throw the ball to the public with the idea without a very proper how to make sure these will be implemented in future. I mean, for me, Prof, I mean, it has to be a win-win situation. We have to acknowledge that the government have to bear a very huge amount of money in future. In the same time that we have to make sure that how the people want to survive in the post-retirement periods. I mean, nowadays, it's not easy to survive with the 1,000 ringgit in Malaysia. I mean, even if you retire as a executive in government also, like 3,000 is not enough. I mean, they have to considering for both parties actually.
Very much agree. Yeah, okay.